We celebrate today, of course, Gaudete Sunday. And for all you Latin scholars out there, it's a second person plural imperative. It's a command. Not a commandment, but a command, like wake up, eat something, rejoice. And we get it, of course, from the readings. Prophet Zephaniah says to Israel, shout for joy, sing joyfully, O Israel. Be glad and exult with all your heart. And Paul takes it even further. Rejoice in the Lord always, he says. But why do we rejoice? How is it even possible to rejoice always? Well, the readings give us a couple of reasons. But first, we have to admit that much of the time, most of us look for our joy outside or our happiness outside of us. And as long as things are going well, then we retain our equanimity. And sometimes it's surprising how little it takes to throw us off, Somebody cutting us off on the expressway on the way to work can ruin the entire day for us, Something as simple as the coffee isn't ready yet can send us into a downspin, I have to admit, last night, I started out excited about saying Mass, and then I happened to notice there's just this constant stream of people coming in after Mass started. Good 50, 60 people probably came in last night after Mass started. And, and it was starting to aggravate me. Then I'm trying to listen to the first reading, and it was a little rainy yesterday. So I'm listening to the first reading, and all I hear is squeak, 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 as people walk with their wet shoes on the terrazzo, And I'm getting more and more aggravated, And some of the responses maybe were a little lackluster, So it just kind of, so I give my homily, and you'll hear the rest of it in a minute, and I go back and I sit down and I say, well, Stef, did you hear what you said? And I thought, here I am, a priest getting ready to say Mass, or saying Mass, arguably the thing that should bring the priest the most joy, The only other thing really that could compete with that is when you see one of your parishioners kind of wake up spiritually, you know what I mean? I thought, here I am, where is my joy here? I've let outside things take it away. And so I sat there and refocused. I said, Stef, concentrate on Father. You're getting ready to say this long prayer to him, confect the Eucharist. What really can compete with that? And that's what the readings tell us, really. Paul, you remember in a different place, Paul says, what can separate us from the love of God? Illness, the sword, whatever, he gives a list of things. And it's not to pretend that we don't have suffering, we do. But Paul says, what can take us away from the love of God? And of course, the answer to his rhetorical question is nothing. And Zephaniah says, you have no further misfortune to fear. He doesn't say you will never more experience misfortune. And we all have misfortune and suffering. We lose our jobs. We get our hearts broken. Our children are having problems. Our spouse or our mother or father is sick, etc., etc. We get sick ourselves, and of course, we die. So it's not to pretend there is no suffering, but we have no longer to fear from our misfortunes and suffering. Because, as we prayed in the responsorial psalm, the Holy One of Israel is in our midst, and he's in our midst forever. We're getting ready to celebrate the coming of whom? Emmanuel, which means God is with us. And we Catholics should be more joyful than anyone. Every day of our lives, if we choose, we can receive our Lord inside into our bodies in the Eucharist. We can eat Jesus' body and drink his blood. It's not to pretend there's no misfortune in the world or no suffering. But what Zephaniah and Paul want to tell us is this truth. There is no misfortune, including death, that can outweigh the joy of knowing Jesus, that can outweigh the joy of Jesus coming among us. And certainly, no misfortune or sorrow can outweigh the joy of being able to receive our Lord